With the writer's strike officially over in February 2008, the writer's room was abuzz with how to finish out season 4. With the deposition's tense final moments slowly fading on the pretense that is Michael and Jan's relationship, there was so much more story to tell. While I'm certain that there were grand plans laid out from the origination of season 4, the pent-up tension and creativity of everyone involved in the office collided to create a collage of artistry on a level of production from writing, set design, costume design, directing, acting, and editing. All to create what I'd arguably call the best episode of a comedic series in television history, The Dinner Party.
You said you didn't have plans.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris and I'm reviewing every episode of The Office, and today we are diving into The Dinner Party. So let's get started with the stat sheet and get to work. This episode was written by Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupinski, these guys, and directed by Paul Feig, who just directed the Survivor Man episode.
Jan has plastic boobs!
It first aired on April 10th, 2008, was viewed by 9.2 million people, and currently has a 9.5 out of 10 on IMDb. And your dinner party trivia is who actually performs this rendition of That One Night. Be the first to put the trivia answer in the comments, and the first to spout out and put the timestamp of the Hidden Andy Easter egg in the comments, and you'll get your name in next week's video. And before we get started, I think I need to say something that typically goes unsaid in my field guides, but this episode's on another level. So if you haven't watched Dinner Party recently, well then leave this video and go watch it now. That'll probably kill my retention rate, but I don't care. I really think to get an appreciation for this episode, the phenomenon that is the dinner party has to be really fresh in your mind.
It's sort of an oaky afterbirth.
So if you're still here, let's get this party started.
I understand nothing.
Okay, the first thing we need to get out of the way is that I already reviewed this episode in an old format. And there are things about that episode that I loved, and there's things about that I hate. So out of all the season 4 content that's out there, this one is definitely going to stick around because there are some extensive call-outs in that episode, and things that I'm just going to sum up for this one. So this is just my way of saying, if you already have watched that, then this is going to be different. And once you finish this one, and you haven't seen the old one, you know, it's a perfectly fine companion piece to this one. So I'll have the link in the description. First up, the Rolling Stone site has this great article by Andy Green, who literally wrote the book on The Office, in which he amassed quite a collection of quotes from those involved in the making of this episode. Just to get into the heads of the writers for this field guide, I pulled a couple quotes from that article. Stupinski said, "There's a quote. How do you make someone laugh? You show them someone falling down. How do you get a comedy writer to laugh? Show a guy pushing a woman down the stairs." I'm paraphrasing, but there's something to that. The darker, usually the funnier it is to us. We're such huge fans of the British Office, and we wanted to write an episode more in that tone. So in his mind, they were really gonna lean into the cringe for this episode, and they weren't shy about that at all. And Eisenberg said, "An episode like this lives in a lot of awkward pauses. A line would happen, and the audience, along with the people at the dinner, would just kind of sit there and let it hang. And so the rhymes of this episode are slightly different."
Everybody enjoying their meal?
So let's talk about the writing in this one. This episode has some of the best dialogue in the series, and I'll give you one of my best cases for that up front.
How are you?
Hi.
I'm not in character yet.
What surround sound means is that, right over here, Jim. Terrible. We'll never finish this episode. Shia LaBeouf.
And real quick, while we're on bloopers, it seemed that Ed Helms ripped a fart so bad that Angela Kinsey left the vehicle.
Oh, God! Oh, God!
Oh no. If Angel's coming out of the car, I think I know what it is.
Super classy.
I'm sorry.
Several cast members have actually stated that this episode was actually a fun nightmare to get through because trying to keep a straight face during some of this dialogue was simply impossible. You can even see John Krasinski break character here. Watch the right of the screen.
Sometimes I think she holds on to faxes.
While some improv was allowed for later takes, The bulk of what we see was written, but there are a couple notable moments of improv in this episode. That being Michael's finger motion when he does this.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
And Jan's movement when she does this.
I guess that makes me the devil.
To me, both became iconic in this episode, so good on them. To seal on the strife themes, I counted approximately 52 explicit examples of insults throughout the time in the condo.
Oh, well, Pam,
Pino.
thank you.
Thanks.
That's so nice. This will be great to cook with. Really.
We'll have a seat or come on in or...
The condo scene takes up about 19 and a half minutes of this episode, meaning that there were almost 3 digs at another character per minute of screen time.
Burn your candles.
You burn it, you buy it.
And while we're counting things, I counted a total of 11 babes spoken.
Their codes, babe?
Yes.
Preference, babe?
Totally your call, babe.
Babe.
Exactly. Whatever you say, babe.
Babe, babe,
Babe, babe.
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 Bye, babe.
All of them scripted.
This is the best burger I've ever had, babe.
Babe.
And that's a lot, which is part of why this episode is often listed as one of the most cringe-inducing episodes of the series. It's one of the reasons that, for years, I'd end up skipping this episode unless I was in the right mood. We all bring our own experiences into the reading and analyzing of art. Fighting like this,
And I'm a candle maker, but you don't hear me bragging about it.
No, all you do is you get me to try to work on my rich friends.
can leave many people feeling emotionally stressed out, which I kind of think is on purpose, but we'll get more on that later. While the cringe is on point, the humor is also layered in every level of the dinner party.
I noticed you're wearing open-toed shoes. Since when did you become a whore?
For real, check out these deleted scenes for the episode, they're amazing. If you've never watched them, then you're missing out on some great content.
Well, Jan fell asleep during her neighborhood watch shift.
Wow, you do neighborhood watch?
Yes.
I did.
As well as an extremely dark and bizarre subplot strung throughout this episode, involving Jan, night watching, a dog, and spray paint.
It bit me on the arm. I didn't even feel it.
And I call them deleted scenes, but in reality, there was a 29-minute cut of this episode that released on iTunes exclusively way back in the day. They've now been chopped off as deleted scenes though. So not only do they lean into the cringe, this episode is laced with subtle callbacks everywhere.
Exactly.
I thought you said that you...
She likes videotaping us during sex.
Oh, my God.
Oh. And then watching it back right afterward to improve my form.
It's like perfect ambivalence. Somehow we're watching this train wreck in front of us, but there are some genuinely great jokes in it.
Cruise.
I don't know.
Katie Holmes.
No. Ah! But he's married to her.
Oh, Dawson's Creek.
No.
Within the normal flow of an Office episode, there tends to be a sequence in which a series of jokes are rapidly paced. Greg Daniels calls these things the killing fields. The most recent example that I can think of is the whom versus who argument in the Money episode in season 4.
No, whomever is never actually right.
But these killing fields don't make it into every episode. And when they do, they're typically only a minute or two long at most. Part of what makes the dinner party so intense is that from the moment Jim and Pam set foot into this condo, they've entered the killing fields. And while there are a few lulls, it lasts until the closing credits. But beyond the humor, what makes this writing so excellent is that there's several metaphors for Michael and Jan's relationship strung throughout this episode. All of them relying on set design and the actors to execute on this vision. The first of which is the most incredible piece of art hung on the stairwell. While this is clearly a play on a Warhol painting, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up that this wasn't an election year, and this art style was everywhere. This hyper-stylized piece of art features 4 different Jans, something of foreshadowing that we're gonna see in this episode, and something that Michael's been dealing with all along. Another great metaphor in this one is Michael's sleeping arrangement.
Really? Because seems pretty narrow and short.
Could anything more perfectly sum up the dysfunction that Michael and Jan have in their relationship as this?
It's actually a lot bigger than it seems. Look at this.
See?
And look, not all couples need to sleep in the same bed together. Still, when 3 out of 3 rooms are almost fully allocated to one person in the household, so much so that even Michael's home office has been relegated to the garage in Scranton in the winter, then I'd feel safe calling out that this is a metaphor for their entire relationship,
Thanks, that's my bed.
sealed in by this incredibly awkward silence. Next is Michael's table, again sold by the set design and the acting.
Oh, and I also built this table
What is that, chestnut?
No, I think that is either pine or Nordic cherry.
It's pine.
Every time I see this thing, I'm reminded of the Peanuts Christmas episode when they get that chintzy, crappy tree, but it means so much more to them. This table represents Michael and even Jan's desire to play house and have their white picket fence life, but they sacrifice quality for the aesthetics. I mean, I wouldn't put that thing in my place, even if I made it. But the point is that Michael is beaming with pride in what he's achieved, similar to how he's handling this entire relationship.
Honey, I have the best trophy right here, aside from my Dundee.
And speaking of trophies, the last metaphor is the sad moment in the resolution of this story. After lines were crossed, Jan is left trying to put something back together that just isn't going to work. The fact that it's a Dundee, coupled with Hardin's fantastic acting, is amazing. Okay, so let's move from the writing to the set design, and some of this is going to overlap. But imagine stepping foot into this set for the first time. Remember that this is an actual entire condo, it's not set on a soundstage. In fact, it's the exact same condo that used to look like this 2 seasons ago.
It's a very gay-friendly neighborhood.
Fun fact, that was Paul Feig's first episode directing on The Office. But the condo has now been entirely Janified.
And these walls, they used to be like white, like an asylum. So I wanted it to be softer, so I had it painted in eggshell white.
Guess what? White and eggshell white are exactly the same color.
We already talked about the many faces of Jan painting, but on your next watch through, pay attention to all the little things, like the artwork on the wall. All of them fall into 3 categories. 1, empty and dramatic gray or sepia tone photos reflecting the emptiness that is Jan. 2, photos of Jan by herself or with other men. Or 3, they're chaotic, abstract pieces of art with intense colors like red or harsh yellows. And while we're on colors, let's also bleed over into the costume design. Everything in this condo, including clothing worn by Michael and Jan, are color-coded. Michael's wearing blues and soft colored clothing, while Jan's wearing an incredibly sharp red top with the reddest of lipstick. Also, how many layers does Andy need? Anyway, back to the set design. Almost everything in this condo that is Michael's represented with lighter blues and whites and overall cooler colors, along with the fact that Michael's stuff is in the cold garage, juxtaposed to Jan's color of choice that tends to be red-based, reflecting heat or the fire that she has, which is evident around her house with 27 lit candles and who knows how many unlit ones. And this isn't without purpose. Think about the climax of this episode. Michael literally takes down this anxiety-inducing red painting representing Jan and replaces it with this interesting blue piece of artwork that represents his bachelorhood. And this concept bleeds over into the directing too, as Feig places Jan directly by the fire, Michael directly opposite of her. And while we're on the directing, some of the camera angles and decisions made in this episode are truly genius. I'm impartial to this shot because it almost feels as though we jumped into a Hallmark scene. But this episode is full of these. Look at this one during the infamous snip snap line. Look at how Michael and Jan are framed in this sequence to amplify the stress with these tight shots and blocked perspectives, leaving it feeling even more claustrophobic than what it would have if we were just in an open area. Just a simple example of how the friction between these two is being amplified by something as simple as the camera angles. Feig was quoted later when he was asked about directing this episode. He said, "I directed a few episodes of The Office every season. The dinner party had gone to some other director, and I'm reading it like, oh my God, I want to direct that episode. And they were like, well, it's already been promised to this other guy. So I was like, ah, snap. To me, the cringier, the better in my comedy. My favorite thing is to make an audience feel really uncomfortable and make them laugh at the same time. So I was super bummed out. Then the writer's strike hit, and we were all bummed out, but I was like, oh, I wonder if I can get this now. Everybody's schedule got mixed up because of the strike, and the director who was supposed to do it got busy on another job. So I came swooping in like a vulture and got it. I was so happy because honestly, it's one of the best scripts I'd ever read in TV, movie, anything. I just completely saw it in my brain. As a fan of this show, I just have to appreciate getting an understanding of what was going on in the minds of the people behind this one. The only decision that I disagree with, because it makes no sense in universe, is the choice to have the characters do the talking heads in the bathroom. Meaning that every time Jim and Pam did one of these things, they had to go to the camera guy and be like, hey, come into this tiny room with me so that I could talk to the camera for a bit. It honestly takes me out of the experience. I guess if I'm calling out negatives too, the sequence when Michael and the boys and Jan and the ladies split up always feels like the episode hits this low point. But that's alright, as the episode hits its stride for the climax and they stick the landing. But all of this combined, the writing, the directing, the production design, the costume design, the acting, the editing, it's near perfection. It's like the time away from the series created some vacuum of creativity that wasn't wasted, but slowly stored up and released that one night.
You took me by the hand.
Okay, so we gotta talk about the song. This song has become a thing in the Office fandom. Fun fact, it's not sung by the actor who played Hunter, Nicholas D'Augusto.
Jan thinks Hunter's very talented. You know what? I don't think he's that good.
We actually had a friendly chat about that earlier this year. Consider that interview plugged. Check that one out later. But it has to be weird to be so well known for something that you didn't actually do. That song itself is such a bizarre thing to include in this episode, but it takes the intrigue up a notch. And Jim and Pam pick up on something that maybe Michael hasn't. But this song has become an icon in the series. And while I get it, I don't actually get it. I mean, I have it. I found this guy on Etsy who sells these things, and they're pretty great, pixelated and everything. But he also sells these music boxes that when you open up, it plays music. Okay, I don't get paid if you buy any of this stuff. I just thought that it was awesome. I'll put a link in the description of this video to his Etsy store. But this song was written by Stupinski, and they knocked it out of the park with a hilarious, cringy song that feels ripped right out of this time period. This sequence spurs so much intrigue too, prompting the theory that Jan probably took Hunter's virginity.
You took me by the hand, made me a man.
And that Hunter might be the father of Jan's baby.
With the name Ass Turd.
But with that, let's dive into the deeper meaning.
And then I gotta get him to the Dundies.
Okay, this is definitely gonna make me feel like I'm part of the Finer Things Club, but if you didn't know, the dinner party's loosely based on this old play from the 60s called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a play on the song from Three Little Pigs, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. So instead of drawing the correlations out loud, I'm just gonna read some of the major plot points with some of the footage of the episode overlaid. The older couple in the story, Martha and George, invite a younger couple, Nick and Honey, to come over after a party. As the older couple begin to hurl insults at each other, the younger couple is initially embarrassed, but become enmeshed in the drama.
Awesome.
Martha is aggressively taunting George, and George opts to use passive aggression in response. Martha tells an embarrassing story about George.
Do you want to tell it, babe, or should I tell it?
I don't like that story, babe.
George gets a gun and shoots it at Martha, but it's fake, and it's just an umbrella that comes out, Joker style. Okay, that last part didn't happen in the dinner party, but it was too good to leave out. There's a scene where Nick and George separate off from Honey and Martha. Nick and Martha dance suggestively with one another, while George pretends to keep calm about it. A subplot about infertility seems to be one of the roots of George and Martha's relationship issues.
You've no idea the physical toll the 3 vasectomies have on a person.
The older couple keep playing games with the younger, ranging from relatively innocent to downright bizarre.
Michael and Jan seem to be playing their own separate game.
Yeah, so pretty spot on. And where the dinner party deviates from the play is kind of the point of this episode. As the dinner party sinks into the bowels of hell throughout this episode, Michael and Jan's game delves further and further. Still, to Michael's credit, he's not actually the source of the cringe in most of this episode.
Sit down on that couch and be amongst friends, and we're not going to think about all your stuff being destroyed, all right?
He just comes off mostly as a sympathetic partner out of the two.
I'm sorry.
What now?
But meanwhile, the other couples begin to be juxtaposed. Like, take Michael and Jan are shown to be entirely mismatched in this episode.
And I bought this condo to fill with children.
I am so sorry that I don't want to bring kids into this screwed up world.
And we see that this is made clear.
For one flower, which is for my flower.
Oh. What am I supposed to do with this?
And And one of the reasons that Michael stays with Jan is
purely carnal. That's all you need to know.
And while that's interesting, the main point of deviation from the play is that the younger couple actually begin to play the older couple's twisted game. It becomes evident that they're all broken and messed up people. Super fun. The dinner party, however, shows Jim and Pam, our stand-ins for Nick and Honey, playing their own game. Instead of sinking down with Michael and Jan, they stay afloat, hanging on to each other. I read an article a while back, and I can't find it now, so take this for what it's worth, but Daniels talked about how he was sort of bummed out that people were upset with Jim for trying to pull this.
That's true. Dinner sounded delicious. Pam, I'll see you at home. Thank you so much.
And equally bummed out that people read Pam's actions here as a negative.
Oh, Jim, I don't think you're going to abandon this party here all by itself.
I don't know, because everything I own is there.
You can buy new stuff, but you can't buy a new party.
He talked about how it was intended for them to be shown to be playing their own game to help deal with the chaos of the evening. Maybe I'm making the whole thing up. Leave a link in the comments if you know the quote I'm talking about. But I agree with that notion, which I may have invented, I don't know. But throughout this episode, Jim and Pam cling onto each other rather than succumbing to the craziness around them. A lot of this is subtle, like quick glances and a few words here and there. The message of this gut-wrenching episode, though, is similar to the play itself. And that's the idea that the American dream, with the white picket fences and the ketchup fights, is just that. It's a dream. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is going to feel like it does in the movies. But sometimes putting rose-colored glasses on things and pretending that everything is just fine, like standing in a fire, telling yourself that you're cold, you might be able to trick yourself for just a second. But you won't fool yourself for that long.
I'm okay. No, I'm not.
Sometimes you just need to know when something's run its course, which makes this closing feel so profound. With that, let's rate this thing.
This is the worst.
Okay, the cold opening. I give this one a 3 out of 5. Honestly, it's fine. I love the idea of the lingering invitation that's been throughout season 4.
You guys should come over for dinner. You and Pam? That'd be fun.
That would be
Friday?
fun.
Want to come over Friday?
Can't.
After work, you guys...
Oh, no. Because...
Stinks.
Darn it.
Shoot.
How about this weekend?
No, can't.
We only had tonight free, and we really wanted to spend it with you.
But the best is Steve Carell, an amazing actor pretending to be Michael Scott, a terrible actor.
Well, we don't want to work. No, we don't. It's not fair to these people. These people are my friends and I care about them.
As far as this episode goes, it's a no-brainer that I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. It's by far one of the best episodes of The Office for me, and in my opinion, it may be one of the best episodes of comedic television in history. In 19 minutes, we're in this condo. We're inundated with joke after joke, both in the foreground and in the background. The set design, something that I never really talk about in this series, is so unique, coordinating out all the colors of the artwork and the aesthetics of the apartment to seal in this deeper meaning of the friction between these two. It's a phenomenal job. You could tell that at every level of production, every single individual had a passion to bring this thing together and create this masterpiece of American television. It's just unfortunate that this was followed up by the chair model.
You don't deserve her.
So come back next week, we'll dive into the aftermath of that one night. If you made it this far, please give this video a like, consider subscribing. Those things help me out a ton, and if you're particularly jovial mood, shoot this video over to a friend who you know loves The Office. Thanks so much for watching, thanks for sharing it, and we'll see you next time.